Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back. I got a busy week ahead of us. Before I get started, I want to just give you a quick update on something. I know in the past there's been several questions about the president donating his salary to charity. I got an update for you on that. To that end, the president has spoken with counsel and made the decision to donate his first quarter salary in total to a government entity. And he has chosen this quarter to donate it to the National Park Service. The Park Service has cared for our parks since 1916, and the president is personally proud to contribute the first quarter of his salary to the important mission of the Park Service, which is preserving our country's national security. So it is my pleasure, on behalf of the President of the United States, to present a check for $78,333 to the Secretary of the Interior, Ryan Zinke, and Superintendent of the Harpers Ferry Park site, Superintendent Brandenburg. So, no, it's straight up. It is every penny that the president received from the first quarter since the day that he was.
It's not a full quarter.
It is, yeah, right, because the Constitution says that. Sorry, that was. So it's from January 20th, noon forward.
We think it'll cash, though.
With that, I'm going to let Secretary Zinke make a few comments about the Department of Interior and the work that they're doing, and hopefully the President's.
Well, thanks. And I'm Secretary Zinke from the Department of Interior, for those that don't know me. Obviously, great to be with you. Those that don't know me, I get my inspiration from Teddy Roosevelt. And the motto now in the Department of Interior, if you go to Yellowstone and have the opportunity to look at the Roosevelt Arch, it says, inscribed in stone, is for the benefit and enjoyment of the people. And that's our pledge. So for those that aren't familiar with the Department of Interior, we span 12 time zones, from the Virgin Islands all the way to Palau. And within our holdings are 20% of the nation's land. We have 417 national parks. We have 562 federally recognized Indian nations, 567 wildlife refuges, and 221 wilderness areas. And I'm the steward of our nation's finest and most majestic holdings. After riding the horse on my first day, we've been pretty busy. Just on public lands alone, I've signed directives on the first day to expand public access. Important if you're in the West, especially in the far West, as Montana is. We made sure we increased opportunities for traditional hunting, fishing, and conservation efforts, and we've invested millions across 12 states on preserving our conservation efforts there. On energy, well, that was much of last week was spent on energy. We held one of our most successful leases, 122,000 acres for wind development on federal lands off Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. We also stopped the war on coal by continuing the coal leasing program, and I established an oversight committee to review and analyze across the board rents, royalties on our federal lands, with the objective of, number one, being transparent, number two, being Reagan, trust but verify, and number three, making sure the taxpayers that own the public lands are getting fair value. On the management side, we have unfortunately uncovered a lot of internal controls that weren't there. There's been in the news several incidences of sexual harassment and a culture of discrimination. And you can hear it from me. I put policies forth, zero tolerance for sexual harassment or discrimination. We have 70,000 full-time employees, and each employee deserves the right to enter a workplace that's innovative, teamwork, but free from harassment. On the brighter side, we will pilot the first ever dog-friendly Department of Interior. Puppy Day is coming up, so we've established that. And people ask, why are you doing that? Well, some of it is we compete on millennials. So we're trying to develop ourselves as a friendly department that's going to work with people. We're going to be an advocate for collaboration, and in doing that, we're going to start with being dog friendly. And also, we've taken to Twitter. As you know, this administration is Twitter friendly. So am I at Secretary Zinke. And finally, as a veteran myself, I tell you, I am thrilled at the President's decision to donate the check he did today. I did talk to the President last night, and he has decided, as you know, to donate his entire quarter salary, and we're going to dedicate it and put it against the infrastructure on our nation's battlefields. We're about $100 or $229 million behind in deferred maintenance on our battlefields alone. And that's on our 25 national battlefields, and we're excited about that opportunity. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you, and thank you for American people to trust the stewardship of our nation's greatest holdings with us. So I'd like to thank our superintendent, Brandyburg, for being here. He's Harper's Ferry. If you haven't been out there, please do. With that, I'll turn it back to Sean. I will take questions.
How's that war on coal thing working there? You're saying that you're going to open it up because of war on coal. Isn't that kind of contrary to what Teddy Roosevelt wanted in preserving the land?
Well, there's no doubt three things. One is environmentally, it's better to produce energy here under reasonable regulation than watch it get produced overseas with none. Secondly, jobs matter. There's a social cost of not having a job. In some of our communities, coal, mining, forestry are the only job. And you can take it from the Crow Nation in Montana, which I'm familiar with, like Chairman O'Coyote, the chairman, once said, is it a war on coal is a war on the Crow Nation, and coal jobs are the only jobs. And lastly, national security. It is, from a SEAL perspective, it is better to make sure we're not held hostage on our energy needs in this country. And like you, I don't want my kids, sons and daughters, to have to fight for war over energy resources we have here. So national security is critical in our energy picture. And look, the world is safer when America is stronger. And America is stronger is not being dependent on foreign sources for energy. We can do it here right, and we will. I'm the steward, and certainly we're not going to sell or transfer public land. And I don't pick winners and losers. So coal isn't getting any more of a better deal than anything else. We'll let the market play, but I want to make sure that what we do is cost effective and it produces reliable, abundant, and affordable energy.
But I think to the point, are you going to return the land to its original pristine value?
I'm a Boy Scout. I'm a Boy Scout. So I was taught long ago that when you leave a campground, you leave it in the same or better condition you found it. And that's why we're looking at royalties and make sure we have a reclamation program that makes sense. All of us want clean air, clean water, and I'm concerned, as well as you are, to make sure what we're doing is in the best interest of the public in perpetuity. So last question, ma'am.
Have you thought about redesignating the Gold Butte Monument in Nevada?
We are looking at everything across the board. When I came in, there was a lot of talk about different monuments in different places, and I've talked to the senators. And so everything's on the board, looking at it. No monument in specific, but looking at the process, look at the law, making sure that the monuments follow the law on there. And at the end of the day, it's important that we operate collaboratively. If you're outside of Washington, D.C., there's a lot of anger out there. And I want the Department of Interior, our rangers and land managers, to be first viewed as rangers and land managers, not law enforcement. I don't want to be us to be heavy-handed, and I want us to work with local communities because that's where we're embedded. Our rangers, they have children, they play soccer, they coach, they do all those things. I want to make sure the Department of Interior is the department that works with local communities, works with the states, and we want to be the YEP team. That means be an advocate rather than an adversary.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thanks. We'll come back.
Okay, I know it's already been a full first day back, but I want to run down a couple of quick things that happened over the weekend. We're fortunate to be championing many great causes during the month of April that are near and dear to the White House. We released several proclamations on Friday that are all available at whitehouse.gov. This morning, specifically, the President proclaimed April 2nd through the 8th as National Crime Victims' Rights Week. On Saturday, the President declared a major disaster in the state of California as a result of severe winter storm flooding and mudslides in February. Federal assistance will be supplementing recovery efforts in the area moving forward. Also on Saturday, the Vice President traveled to Columbus, Ohio to discuss American jobs and the economy. He spoke with business leaders at Dynalab, an American-owned, operated electronic manufacturing services company. The Vice President told the crowd that the actions that the President has already taken to create jobs in this country make it easier to do business, from taking a serious look at the regulatory process to ushering in a new era of American energy. With respect to today, the President, as you know, welcomed President al-Sisi of Egypt to the White House this morning. The two presidents had an honest discussion focused on areas of cooperation. The President made clear that this is a new day in the relationship between Egypt and the United States, and the President affirmed his strong support of the Egyptian people. It was a candid dialogue during which they discussed both areas of cooperation and of concern. Also this morning, the White House released the official portrait of the First Lady, which is similarly available on whitehouse.gov. And just about now, the President began a meeting with Secretary of State Tillerson, where they're expected to discuss several topics, including the Secretary's recent trip to Brussels, where he attended the NATO Foreign Ministers meeting. As you may have known, just prior to the briefing, the Senate Judiciary Committee voted to advance the President's selection for Neil Gorsuch to the full Senate. While the White House was pleased to that beyond the committee partisan vote, more Democrats have moved past partisan obstruction to acknowledge that Judge Gorsuch is simply qualified and deserving of being on the bench. But we're obviously disappointed that the overwhelming majority of them are still playing politics with the nation's highest court. If the Democrats get their way, and I know the numbers are looking that way, this is going to be the first successful filibuster of a nominee to join the Supreme Court, which is clearly unprecedented. With a vote on Judge Gorsuch expected Friday, the American people will see which senators are willing to keep this seat open to get in the way of President Trump making progress on one of his most significant choices so far. Also today opens the application process for this year's H-1B visas. The President has spoken about the H-1B visa program in the past. The White House acknowledges that there are issues with the program as it currently stands. However, there are several laws that are on the books that went unenforced in the previous administration. As the Department of Justice made clear in its release this morning, the Trump administration will be enforcing laws protecting American workers from discriminating hiring practices. Looking ahead to the schedule for the rest of the week, the President will host a CEO town hall meeting on the business climate tomorrow morning. And then in the afternoon, he will make remarks to the 2017 North America's Building Trades Union National Legislative Conference. On Wednesday, as I mentioned last week, he will host His Majesty Kim Abdullah II of Jordan. And on Thursday, after welcoming participants of the Wounded Warrior Project Soldier Ride, the President will depart for a visit with President Xi of China to Mar-a-Lago. The President has been briefed on the devastating flooding that has killed several hundred people in Colombia, and we are working closely with the governments of both Colombia and Peru to support efforts to address the extensive losses and damage caused by this natural disaster. The President has also been briefed on today's attack at the St. Petersburg metro. The United States condemns this reprehensible attack and act of violence. Our thoughts and prayers are with the injured and with the Russian people as we extend our deepest condolences to the loved ones who have been killed and injured. Attacks like these on ordinary citizens just going about their lives remind us that the world must work as one to combat violence in all forms. The United States is prepared to offer assistance to Russia that it may require in investigating this crime. And with that, I'd be glad to take your questions. Cecilia.
Thanks. A couple questions on the same topic. Jared Kushner's trip to Iraq today. Why is he there and not the Secretary of State today? What's the message that the President is sending by having Jared Kushner be the one to take this trip?
I don't think it's not a binary choice. In this particular case, both Jared Kushner and Tom Bossert, the assistant to the President for Homeland Security, are on the trip at the request and invitation of the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who was going there and believed it was an opportunity for both of them. It's ironically the first trip for both Mr. Kushner and Mr. Bossert. They're going to receive briefings and updates with respect to what's going on the ground, our military involvement there, and our efforts to defeat ISIS. Jared's going to specifically express the commitment of the United States to the government of Iraq, meet with U.S. personnel engaged in the campaign, and Mr. Bossert will participate in meetings and briefings to reinforce the strong U.S.-Iraqi partnership to defeat ISIS. But it's not like this is a one-shot deal. In the course of conversation and extensive meetings, that invitation was extended and they took it up.
His portfolio is jam-packed and has grown in recent weeks. Among the things that's our understanding that are in his portfolio, he is to broker Middle East peace and overhaul the federal government. Can he do all of these things?
I think not to. It's not like he has a team that he oversees, and I think there's a lot of areas that he has been working very diligently on behalf of the government, on behalf of the president's agenda. So going over and getting a firsthand understanding of the work that's being done, to thank the government of Iraq, to see some of the sacrifice and progress that our team is making on the U.S. side, is an opportunity that I think every government official and every member of the media should frankly take advantage of if offered that opportunity. Matt?
A recent ProPublica report out today revealed that President Trump can draw money from his businesses at any time without disclosing it. So on that, I have two questions.
Okay.
One, has the president withdrawn any money from his businesses since taking office? And two, can the White House commit that the president will disclose future withdrawals if they take place?
I'm not sure what he's withdrawn. I think that I'm somewhat surprised in the sense that anyone would find it shocking. A blind trust, or any kind of trust rather, the whole entire point of setting it up is that somebody can withdraw money. I mean, that's frankly part of the point of setting it up.
So then why was this change not made? It was made after.
No, that just, no, I do. But again, I think that you just went and started to say this change was made. I'm not aware that there was any change. Just because a left-wing blog makes the point of something changing doesn't mean it actually happened. I'm not aware that there was ever a change in the trust. And the idea that the president is withdrawing money at some point is exactly the purpose of what the trust, why a trust is set up, regardless of an individual.
So, just last question on this. So you're not saying whether or not it has changed, just to clarify. You're not sure whether.
No, I'm actually, to the best of my knowledge, it hasn't changed.
Cool, thank you.
Olivia, sorry.
Thank you.
Same seat, wrong person.
Yeah, that's right. I got a couple for you. One, there are multiple reports the administration is looking at arms packages for Taiwan, including missile defense and fighter jets. Can you confirm or clarify or deny those reports?
I'm not going to discuss.
Okay, and then last August, the president sharply criticized then President Obama for not making more of a public case for human rights throughout the Muslim world, throughout the Arab world. You guys have now said that it's better to raise those issues privately. I'm trying to understand the evolution of the thinking there. What changed his mind?
What changed?
The president's mind.
I think the president recognizes that those are conversations where we can, as I said in the statement, that there are areas of that we can work with in cooperation and concern, and that's best discussed privately in terms of how we address areas that need to be discussed like that in order to make progress on them. I don't think that should be a huge surprise.
Did you raise them in this meeting? Do you know?
Again, I'm not going to get into what they discuss privately, but I will tell you that we understand the concern, and I think those are the kind of things that I believe progress is made privately. Sarah.
Thanks,
Sarah.
John. I have two. One, has President Trump spoken with President Vladimir Putin about the terror attack in Russia?
Not yet. I know that obviously the president of Egypt just left moments ago prior to me coming out. But I do know that, as I mentioned at the top, our teams have been reaching out to both the government of Russia, the government of Colombia, and I know that there's been some outreach, I believe, to the folks, the government of Peru, with respect to their situation, the mudslides there, and then obviously the violence that occurred in Russia is something that we've already started reaching out from a government to government standpoint. If there is a call, we will make sure that we read that out.
Secondly, Senator Rand Paul has called the reports that Susan Rice ordered the unmasking of President Trump's associates a, quote, smoking gun.
Right.
Does the president agree with that characterization, and what does he think of these reports?
Yeah, I saw Senator Paul's tweet. Look, I think I want to make sure I'm clear, I'm consistent. I think we've been trying to say that from the get-go that there's been an ongoing investigation that we have supported looking into this matter. I will say that we have continued to say that I think there is a troubling direction that some of this is going in, but we're going to let this review and go on before we jump to it. But I think that it is interesting the level of or the lack of interest that I've seen in these developments when it goes in one direction versus where I think it was going, where other amounts of interest that have come from this room and beyond. I'm somewhat surprised in terms of the level of interest that I've seen from the press corps at one set of developments versus another set of developments. That being said, I'm not going to start getting into a further discussion of that. Blake.
Sean, thanks. Let me pick up here a couple questions, but I'll start here. Does the White House believe Susan Rice may have done anything illegal?
I think I'm not going to appreciate the effort there. I'm not going to start going down that road. As we've said before, if we go down one road, we need to go down them all. And I think at this point, we have supported this review that we've asked for. But I do think that when you see the developments that we've seen in terms of the public on the record comments that Dr. Farkas, Evelyn Farkas, who is the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Defense for Russian Affairs, said very publicly that this was part of an attempt of the Obama administration to spread classified information. Then you see the developments that have happened today. I'll just say that, as again, I'm somewhat more from a media standpoint, somewhat intrigued by the lack of interest that we've seen in some of these public revelations and reporting that has gone in that direction that we've seen in some of the other directions that we've seen. That being said, I'm not going to get into.
And let me ask you, as it relates to Neil Gorsuch,
Yeah.
Is the White House comfortable with the nuclear option potentially being invoked?
The president said several weeks ago that this was something that he would support. We're comfortable in the sense that obviously that decision is up to Leader McConnell to make how he wants the Senate to deal with this. I think the majority leader's comments are very clear in the direction that he's headed in. But I think we have entered a whole new league if this goes forward in terms of Democrats really going and saying it's one thing to vote against a nominee. We've seen that in the past, and I understand that. But we've now gone from the devolution of agreeing that there are certain people that a president has the right as long as they're qualified, right? We've seen that in the past. John Roberts, I think, got 78 votes. But when you see that go in one direction versus now that there's literally going to be the first filibuster in modern times on a qualified judge that's going to end up going on the court, we have really come a long way. And I think Democrats are setting a very dangerous precedent when it comes to how they want to do this, because this isn't about voting against somebody or having an issue with them. It is literally trying to stop using the filibuster for something that it was never intended for, nor has it ever really been the principle that we would vote down somebody who is qualified. Trey.
What is President Trump doing behind the scenes to make sure that his pick for the Supreme Court, Judge Neil Gorsuch, ultimately is confirmed by the Senate? And what message does he have for Democrats on Capitol Hill who have said they're going to filibuster?
Well, I mean, if you look at, I think it's 4 Democrats that are now saying that they're going to vote against the filibuster. I think we feel good about that level of support. We've, I think, done a very good job of making sure that we have the Republican majority support that we need to pass it. It is now an internal question for senators to determine how they want to do it. But make no mistake, and I believe Leader McConnell, when he says on Friday, Judge Gorsuch will be voted as the next Supreme Court justice.
Me through what Friday looks like for the president. Obviously a major meeting with the president of China, but his eyes are going to be here on Washington. Is he going to be making phone calls Thursday night trying to gauge the
I think
situation?
he's going to be, we look forward to heading down to Florida Thursday to engage in some bilateral and bilateral plus meetings with the president and his team from China. Obviously that will continue into Friday morning, but we'll see how Friday evolves. But I don't think there's any question right now, according to Leader McConnell and others, that we're going to have an associate justice of the Supreme Court ready to go. It's a question of how it happens. Zeke?
A couple questions about the check presentation earlier in the briefing. You mentioned that he was decided to give the money to the Park Service at the advice of council. Is there an issue with him making a donation to a nonprofit?
I think there was just that when given the options He decided that there was a list of government entities that can accept donations. Ironically, it's not as easy to give money to the government as you would think, and aside from the IRS, and then I don't think you're giving. But my point is that he looked through a variety, and for this quarter, he chose the National Park Service. But it was a decision that he made based on his counsel presented him with several options, and he believed that as Secretary Zinke pointed out, that there was some great work being done there, especially that needed to do to restore our great battlegrounds, and wanted to do his part.
Speaking of giving money to the federal government, the president's been going to Mar-a-Lago again this weekend, has been facing calls from both officials in New York and in Florida, either to appropriate federal funds or request federal funds, which were not in the budget, for the additional security burdens that they have faced given his residences there and his travels into those places, or to reimburse those local governments out of his own pocket. Obviously, this is a president who is far wealthier than any president we've seen in modern times, and he has the capability to make those outlays. Is that something the president is considering, or has he decided to make those outlays to reimburse these
I think there's a
governments?
few things. Number one, the request to go to Mar-a-Lago was something that the Chinese, that was negotiated with the Chinese. And so I think this is a very high-level visit that really has a huge impact on our both economic and national security. So secondly, the president has an opportunity, as all presidents, President Bush traveled to Crawford, the President Obama went to Hawaii often. I mean, this is not something that you can control. There is a security aspect that the Secret Service determines when the president and the family travels. That's not dictated by the President of the United States. And third is, I would know, ironically, this is a day that the President just donated a significant amount of money of his salary back to the federal government. And so, respectfully, it's like, it's at what point does he do enough? He just gave a very sizable donation.
Though that's a very small.
But that's
amount
not
of
how we judge. I mean, I think to be able to say that, he isn't taking a salary. I think he's stepped down from his business. He's walked away from a lot. I think I think at some point he's done quite a bit in terms of making a donation to the government. John.
Sean, back on Susan Rice, if I could. The fact that it's allegedly the former national security advisor who requested the unmasking when it came to the incidental collection of people who were associated with the Trump campaign and the Trump transition puts that now squarely in the White House. When you look at that, combine it with the NSC rules that were promulgated at the end of the Obama administration to more broadly share intelligence, does this White House look at what she allegedly requested as a national security issue or a political issue?
Well, I'm not going to, that's a nice backdoor into the line of questioning. I think until there's a finding of that, I don't want to start getting into the motives, because we still haven't, me getting to the motives assumes certain things in fact that I don't think we're ready to go to yet, because that again would be getting in the middle of an investigation. I do think that there's been enough public discussion and reporting on this stuff that I'm not going to comment on this any further until those committees have come to a conclusion of that sort. So we're not going to start going down and guessing the motives of something that is not assumed in fact yet. But I do think that it is interesting, though, as I mentioned earlier, the level or lack thereof of interest in this subject versus what has been commented on previously in terms of alleged people involved in processes. So I think there's Margaret.
Sean, you mentioned that Jared Kushner has a team working with him. Can you help us understand exactly what's in the portfolio and who's on the team, and I have a follow to that?
Yeah, he's announced the Office of American Innovation the other day. We named a bunch of those folks that have been part of that team, and as he looks at various aspects of government, he works with different people in the White House that oversee different parts of that portfolio, whether it's part of the team that's doing the Middle East was one thing. So you've got Jason Greenblatt, who's been traveling to the Middle East and other places to do that. There's people like Reed Cordish and Chris Liddell that are part of the team that are talking about the Office of American Innovation that he has discussed last week with respect to opioid use and others. So there is a team, depending on the subject, that is working with him, and he is providing oversight and direction.
So he's overseeing teams handling all these different issues, whether it's Mexico, Canada, Israel, Palestine, Iraq,
Sure.
Saudi.
Well, again, remember, on Iraq, don't go too far there. He he was invited by the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, as was Tom Bossert, the assistant to the president for Homeland Security, to see the work that's being done there firsthand. I don't think to sort of then translate into he's overseeing Iraq is an accurate assessment. He was invited to go see something by the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and he's doing it.
But my follow on that is, I appreciate how he's in such a unique position and so trusted by the president. But there are people who could look at the situation and say, the White House isn't meant to be run as a family business. There are institutions with experienced diplomats who have years of decades of linguistic and experience on the ground.
Why, with respect to what?
With whatever these issues are, the foreign policy issues in particular that you
Can you
laid
just
out.
be clear, though, because you just said with years of linguistic experience, so what situation are you specifically referring to?
Well, it's partly why I was asking exactly what's in the portfolio, because it's our understanding that Mr. Kushner is involved with Mexico, that he's involved with Saudi Arabia, that he's involved with Canada, that he's involved with a number of different issues, China in particular.
I think that there has been, as he has made clear, initially during the transition, he played a very key role in helping facilitate a lot of those. But now that his State Department's up and running, he has started to push a lot of those. But there's obviously people that are going to continue. Absolutely, but there's a lot of relationships that Jared's made over time with different leaders, Mexico being one of them you mentioned, that are going to continue to have conversations with him and help facilitate. That doesn't mean by any means that it's being done without coordination with the State Department. Quite in fact, the opposite. He's continued to work with them and to facilitate an outcome, but he brings a perspective to this and began doing that during the transition. But again, it's not a binary choice where he's doing this at the expense of somebody else.
So he's a direct line to the president, whereas the other institutions are not.
Okay, great. That's even better then. I think that's a win for our government. Shannon.
On healthcare, has the president been reaching out, or anyone in the administration, to Democrats in Congress? Can you say specifically who? And does he still see the opportunity to work more closely with Democrats, given the difficulties with the House Freedom Caucus?
I think the president has made clear that he intends to work with anyone who wants to help him get to the number of votes. He obviously had a very productive discussion this weekend with Senator Paul. I know the vice president's been actively engaged, as well as other members of the staff, with members of the House in particular. And they're going to continue to try to find a way forward. But there are some, I'm not going to expose every member that's had some of these. Some of them want to back channel this to offer solutions and constructive ways forward. But those conversations are happening at several levels within the White House to see if we can find a way forward to get the number of requisite votes. But the president continues to work hard. He's having these conversations. Members have reached out to him to make their suggestions known, and so that's. But we continue to feel optimistic in the sense that there's a lot of constructive ideas that are coming to the table to get us to a way forward on healthcare. I just want to make one admin announcement. Tomorrow, the president is, as I mentioned, he's giving a speech tomorrow with a roundtable of CEOs on the American workforce, and then tomorrow he'll be speaking again at the American National Building Trades Union. So we'll have some kind of background briefing before the day because he is speaking live. So we will, on the guidance tomorrow, have something for you in terms of what we'll do for a briefing. We're working on that now. With that, I'm going to end for today and let you guys have a good one. Take care. Thank you, guys.
Don't you like us no more?
Hello, everyone. We were watching the briefing, and then we're like, wait, why aren't all the networks covering Sean Spicer's briefing? Because we have the TVs on. And then we were like, is he finishing all of a sudden? And then 5 seconds later, he finished, and I ran in here. So I got to put on my earpiece. Sorry. It was a little sooner than we thought he might finish. So we're just getting all settled in here for the post show. Bear with me for 1 second, please, as I do this. So odd. Well, this is now officially taking longer than I hoped it would for me to do this one clip thing here. Anyways, where is it? There it is. Okay. Sorry, folks. Come on, wasn't that fun watching me put that on? Anyways, we are back. It's the post show. I'm going to center myself here. There we go. So that was a Sean Spicer press briefing. A number of you wrote in some comments that I want to read here during the briefing. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the briefing, anything that went on, anything he said. If you'd like, direct message me on Twitter at Lookner, at Lookner, or email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. Or, Jake, can we take calls? Yes, you can call in during the post show. Let me know what you think about Sean Spicer's press briefing or any of the stuff going on today. The Susan Rice, the Russia terrorist attack, what else? The Neil Gorsuch Supreme Court nomination stuff. Want to hear from you. Let me know your thoughts. Share your thoughts with Right Side viewers. 202-470-0049 is the number. 202-470-0049. Also, I got to send a special shout out to Dan and Ophir, who donated to us during the briefing in the YouTube chat room. Thank you so much. Your donations are why we can stay on the air. So thank you, Dan and Ophir. Really appreciate it. I think Dan might have donated, actually given two donations. If you'd like to donate, you can go to the chat room, click on the $ below the chat room. Makes it really easy to donate. We really appreciate it. You're the reason, your support is the reason we can do this and bring this coverage to you. Thank you to the moderators for moderating the chat room today, by the way. And you can also donate at rsbn.tv/donate. Okay, I got to get to some messages here. Before I even get to the press briefing stuff, there were some messages I want to get to about the press briefing that people sent me, and I do not want to ignore your messages. Let me go back here. So, well, one of the things that happened that some people wrote in about was, actually, hold on a second, that I want to read some comments on was, at the start of the press briefing, Sean Spicer announced that Donald Trump was giving his first quarter salary, as he said he would. He was going to donate it, and he donated it to the National Park Service, and they presented a check for $78,333.32 to the National Park Service. We posted it on our Twitter account, by the way, at RSB Network, and I posted it on my Twitter account too. So some of you wrote in some comments about that I want to read. Julio wrote in a charitable king. Let's see. Muhammad Fukaha wrote skyscraper signature. Megan Davis Hakes wrote, I'm sure the liberals will find something terribly wrong with this. I think it's awesome. Diana Chambers wrote, our founding fathers are the only ones who gave money to the country in the past. Thank you, President Trump. I Spy wrote, match it, Barry, act Barack Obama. A guy from Finland, that wasn't the actual reply. Somebody liked that reply. The reply was, Veritas wrote, boom, every last penny of his presidential salary since January 20th. Liz Estrada wrote, another campaign promise kept. Bernice Jones also wrote that. Guaranteed E-Turn wrote, they should have had a giant novelty check handover, sad. So they showed the check on a screen, but I do think there's something funny to having that giant check handover. I agree with you, Guaranteed E-Turn. I love giant novelty checks. Let's see. Now, there were also some comments people wrote about the briefing as well. Oh, CJ Lane wrote in, hi, Steve. In the press briefing, why is April Ryan's seat, that is, left vacant when she is not in attendance? Noticed it's only ever her seat, ? So I was, when I go out to watch the briefing in between the pre-show and the post-show, I'm sometimes listening to the briefing, my eye's not always on it. So I didn't see today April Ryan's seat being empty. However, I could see a world in which April Ryan isn't there, but they keep the seat empty because she might come in late or something like that. That could be one reason. I don't really have an answer for you in terms of whether they keep seats empty or not for people, or whether it's just the tradition that if you don't show up, they keep your seat there. I don't know. Speaking of April Ryan, she is the person, she's a reporter. She works for, you might know her as the African-American reporter, I think for National Urban Radio, who got in that exchange with Sean Spicer that got all this press last week. She asks very negative questions about the administration. She asks a lot of questions in the press briefings. Also, I remember last week she shouted, which I thought was rudely, at Jeff Sessions in the briefing. But CNN hired her, as she posted on her Twitter, CNN hired her today as a political analyst. And my opinion of this is what I just posted on my Twitter, which is CNN just adds to their roster of one-sided political analysts who end up just repeating partisan talking points rather than actually giving you thoughtful insight. And they do this on both sides. They have people on both sides like this. And that's why I don't watch CNN panels. I just turn them off because they're not interesting and I know what everybody's going to say beforehand. I will say... Okay, so we'll get to a call in a second. I will say also this, though. You know, April Ryan, to me, she interrupts Sean Spicer repeatedly, and after she interrupts her repeatedly in the briefing, he says to her, like, stop making, and she makes rude faces, and he says, stop making those faces. And then she gets rewarded for that by getting these appearances on, like, MSNBC and CNN, and now she gets rewarded for that in addition by getting hired by CNN. So that, to me, seems to encourage the press to get in fights with the press secretary, because then they'll get more coverage and be rewarded. Anyways, we have Timothy on the line right now. Timothy, hello. Where are you calling from?
Grenada, Mississippi.
Sounds good. Well, welcome to the show. What did you want to talk about today?
I just wanted to point out that the press secretary don't like the press no more. You can hear it at the end of the press conference.
Now, you think he's just over them already, even though it's only 2 months into the administration, he's just over them.
Yeah, they're not the right press corps to be there. There should be different people there.
And so, what can I ask, Timothy? So clearly, you don't like, a number of our viewers are not in favor of the way the press corps has been behaving themselves in the briefing. Like, is there anything specific? Like what bothers you about the press at those briefings?
They asked all the wrong questions. They did not cover the real news, for one.
Okay.
So that's my main thing. They did not cover the real news. They should have been all over that bombing this morning in Russia.
And you think they're just not talking about, you're not giving it nearly as much coverage as you think they should be?
Nope. They only want to cover the racial stuff and the stuff that makes them look bad. That's my opinion.
Well, I agree with you, Timothy. The press really does seem to love stuff that they think makes President Trump look bad. And Sean Spicer actually said something about this to them. He said, you're not really covering the Susan Rice thing, which is interesting to me because that's just part of this other story, and you were covering the rest of the story, but not this. So he seemed to agree with you on that, Timothy. But
they will not cover both sides. I only cover one side.
Cool.
That's just the press now.
Well, Timothy, I hear your pain because a lot of our viewers have called in and said similar things, and so sorry. Unfortunately, I don't think the press corps is going to change over anytime soon. So we'll see how their relation evolves over time. But thank you for coming in and calling in and giving your opinion. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I've been here since y'all started covering.
Oh, thanks so much, Timothy. We really appreciate it. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
That was Timothy from Mississippi, a longtime viewer. How nice of him to watch us and to view us and to call in. We'd love to hear from you, too. So 202-470-0049 is our number. Give a call in. Let us know what you're thinking. Doesn't matter what your opinion is. We'd love to hear it either way. So just let us know. We are open to hearing lots of opinions here on the show. I got a couple messages here. GSB.UK says, no questions about Nunes or Flynn. What a surprise. You mean, I can't tell, do you mean like, so you're genuinely surprised because they didn't ask about this? Although, maybe there was just so much else going on today that they didn't have time to ask about it. So thank you for writing in, GSB.UK. They did ask about the Susan Rice thing, which is related to the Nunes thing. So maybe that was like the Nunes-related thing. That was an interesting moment. To repeat, so the Susan Rice story we talked about in the pre-show, but that is an aspect of this Nunes story that we were even saying on the pre-show, the press is not covering this at all, the mainstream media that I've seen. I mean, I guess Fox is some, but not CNN and MSNBC. New York Times, it's nowhere to be found on their page, at least that I checked a half hour ago, on their front page of their site. But this to me, that when the General Flynn story came out about requesting immunity, which was an entirely routine thing for somebody to be doing, which was basically a non-story in terms of giving you new information about whether General Flynn did something wrong. That got so much press coverage, like 24 hours of press coverage, nonstop. And yet I don't see this Susan Rice thing being covered anywhere, even though they're both aspects of the same story. And arguably, to me, the Susan Rice stuff is way more substantial than the General Flynn stuff is. But no coverage, or very little coverage. Anyways, let's see who else we have writing in today. We have Sightless Seer. You sent me a long message, Sightless Seer, so I don't think I can read the whole thing, but let me, maybe I can read the first part. I'll read the first part of your message. Blessings, Steve. Good afternoon. Mainstream media degradation of public information. I think a root may have been when news became more about sensationalism, ratings, and entertainment, rather than a civic duty to present the information to the people and start a discussion over the events themselves among the people. Instead, it has become an elaborate public political theater with talking head soundboarding and narrated to stir up intrigue with very little information being imparted to the public. I very much like the work you do, Steve. You do your best to give your viewer raw feeds of events and have their own discussion of event and political implications and do their own research. You encourage people to utilize critical thinking and make of it for themselves. Have you thought of setting up a resource forum or a place where people can archive valuable, useful resources from both the public and from RSBN volunteers and employees? It would be useful for those who seek to gather as much information they can on the subjects of their interest and measure the progression of events for themselves and have an informed discussion on reasonable solutions and factors, presenting perspectives to be considered which may influence events. So thank you, Sightless Seer, for writing that in. I appreciate the kind words. Yeah, we don't want to at Right Side Broadcasting tell you what to think. We want to just give you more information and give you different views and let you decide. I think the country is at its best when the population itself is thinking for themselves and they're getting a lot of information, getting as much information as they can, and coming to decisions based on thinking about both sides of an argument and all the different sides of an argument. So that's what we try to do here. Thank you, Sightless Seer, for saying thanks to us. As regards to setting up some information bank, we are so short-staffed here in terms of just getting you the program we can. So there's all these things we'd like to do, and that sound great that we can't do just because we're maxed out trying to just keep our programming on the air and cover events and cover breaking news and stuff. So that kind of thing is something we could put on a wish list or something. But at the same time, I actually think there's added information out there on the internet. A lot of information is out there. You just have to sometimes search for it. So I would encourage you, here's the thing, you're talking about set up some kind of place where we can share information. If there's information that, if you're looking for that kind of group, I would encourage you try to find, for example, there are Reddit groups on certain topics. If you're a big Donald Trump fan, you can go to Reddit Donald Trump and they'll share articles and stuff like that. And it's the same thing if you're a fan of Hillary Clinton. So, or if you want to know more about environmental policy. So I do think people sharing stuff in a small group is a good idea, or a larger group. But go try to figure out what topics are you really interested in, and I would encourage you to look around the web and maybe you can find some group of like-minded people who will share stuff with each other and keep information there and stuff like that. So it's a neat idea. But oh, very cool, good. You mean long-time viewer or long-time caller? Oh, okay, great, awesome, cool. Let me read one more comment and then we will get to that call. One more comment I run. So thank you, Sightless Seer, for the message. Susan J. writes in and says, if I can get her message, Trump contribution is great. Trump is the new face on Mount Rushmore. So that's what Susan J. says. Thank you. Right. There's one more comment I wanted to read here that I think I read before, and I just want to see. Give me 1 second here. Oh yeah, Denyne, D-E-N-Y-N-E wrote in, I think the Republicans should use the nuclear option if necessary. The Democrats are going to block anything Trump does. So that's about the Gorsuch nomination. And Denyne, I think they very well might use the nuclear option. I think you're going to see that in the coming days. I got to figure out exactly what day that is. I think it might be Thursday when that might happen. Thursday, Friday? I got to look it up. But thank you for the message, Denyne. Okay, we have Ryan, who has called before, and we love having him call back. Ryan, remind me, Ryan, where you're calling from. Maybe one day I'll remember.
Hey, no worry. Phoenix, Arizona.
Awesome. Ryan, thanks for calling in again. What's on your mind today?
And if you guys are doing stories out here, you got a place to stay, buddy.
Oh, thanks so much.
Go on the road.
Is it like? Do you have like a nice fridge and we can put stuff in?
We have a little casita guest house and we're free.
Great! That sounds awesome. Write that down, Jake. Phoenix. Okay, Ryan. So, what did you want to talk about today?
Hey, two stories. Obviously, Susan Rice, huge story today. Dumbfounded that the press corps, finally Fox and maybe one other person decided to bring up the story. I mean, it's a huge story. But two stories that came out last week that I didn't see really anybody cover. Number one was Juncker from the European Union throwing a threat to Trump, saying he's going to work on breaking up Austin, Texas, and one other state from the Union. Basically, just taking a shot at us as an ally. So I thought that story was interesting. Juncker, as you know, European Union, they're not elected, okay? So I don't know how much people know this, but the leaders of the EU are not elected. The meetings are not videotaped. There's no transcripts. It's all done behind a curtain. So FYI on that story, I thought it was interesting. The second one was, I don't know if you saw Cernovich. He was obviously on 60 Minutes, but the thing that caught my eye was the story before, leading up to him, which was the shooters in Texas, where there was reports that an FBI or somebody in the government was trailing the vehicle where the two assailants came out and started shooting up the place with the cartoon drawing competition. Mm-hmm. And then he sped off and left the scene. And cops were eyewitness to this. And I have not heard anybody covering that story as far as what just happened.
Now, I haven't. I'll actually watch it. I've seen the Cernovich story, but I haven't watched the rest of that episode yet. So I'm interested in that story now. So I'll make a point. You're saying this was a story before the Cernovich fake news story on that episode of 60 Minutes.
Yeah, it was
right?
their lead story in the first box.
Interesting.
And they're saying that the FBI obviously. The question is, the FBI knew about these people because of surveillance, but why did the officer that was following them or tailing them not get out of his vehicle and try to stop them with a firearm versus leaving the scene? That's the interesting. Like, why would he do that?
And I'm trying to find right now, as you talk and mention this, I'm trying to find the exact place. So it's called Attack on Garland. I just opened it up in my 60 Minutes app, and I'll watch it later. But if people want to know, it says, aired on March 26th, a terrorist attack in Texas by 2 U.S. citizens shows how hard it is to prevent such an attack, even when one of the terrorists is well known to the FBI, which you just referred to, Ryan. So I will have to watch this later and see.
There's so much great news out. You guys are, I hope you realize you're watching a paradigm shift right in front of your eyes. You guys are keenly positioned. You're positioned in a key spot because you're concerned about truth and transparency. And so the MSM has their foot in their mouth and they're not able to ask real questions because they're a part of this whole collusion. You guys are positioned in a great spot.
Well, thank you. That's very nice of you to say, Ryan, and we appreciate that you watch and call in and enjoy our network, and we do it for you guys. And we love when you call in and tell us stories, that we haven't, I haven't heard about that Junker story, so I'll go look it up today. But we want to cover stuff that, we want to hear from you if there's stuff you want to get covered. So either call in like Ryan does or email us at feedback@rsbn.tv, but let us know the stories that matter to you and let us know what's going on. And a lot of times, you give us heads up about stories before we hear about them anywhere else. So appreciate the call, Ryan. Thanks a lot.
Okay, take care, buddy.
Have a good one. That was Ryan, a longtime caller. Well, I guess we can call him a longtime caller now from Arizona. Appreciate his call. I will have to watch that 60 Minutes story that he suggested. Okay, we're doing the post show for the Sean Spicer press briefing. And I'm trying to think, was that briefing? I feel like it was a little shorter than usual because he started around 2:35 or 2:40 Eastern time, and I think he ended around like 3:20. So that's shorter than usual. Thought it was odd, but not that I'm not reading into anything. I just found it interesting that happened. Hold on, I'm getting a bunch of you sent me some comments here on Twitter, and I'm trying to get them. Let's see. Let me look at your Twitter comments and read them. Hold on, folks. Let's see. Deplorable Dolores wrote in prayers for all the Russian families affected by the ISIS terrorist attack. And yes, I think that's a good, I agree with your sentiment. You know, we here at Right Side, anybody who is negative, hurt, or families in Russia, we do feel for them. And anytime we see a terrorist attack anywhere, you know, we feel for the innocent people who get hurt by this stuff, so, and killed, and everybody affected by that. So I think that's a nice thing for you to say, Deplorable Dolores, and we agree. Okay, hold on one sec. CJ Lane writes in, Steve, you're spot on April Ryan. Bad behavior, you become a CNN analyst. The bar has been set very low. Major will join her. Major Garrett, you're predicting. Let's see. Nationalist Denver writes in, we would share a check image from Obama, but it doesn't exist. Thank God that nightmare is over. That's from Nationalist Denver. Okay, we have, is it Timothy on the line? Jesse, I'm sorry. I'm losing my mind. Jesse, where are you calling? Hi, where are you calling from today?
Hey, I'm calling from Pennsylvania. How's it going, Steve? How's the day going?
It's going great. Thanks for calling in. Appreciate it. What do you want to talk about today?
Well, I wanted to talk about the filibuster of Gorsuch and how Sean was saying that it's probably going to happen and it's sort of unprecedented. And what did he say about it where it was almost like it's setting a dangerous precedent where he was like making a threat almost to saying like if the Democrats do this, it's possible the Republicans can do this to the Democrats in the future. And I'm not sure. I'll have to watch that again if that's actually what he was implying. I'm not sure. But did you get that out of that?
No, you know, this is one of these things where, you know, like when I'm out there in between the pre-show and the post-show and I have the briefing on, I'll probably catch about 85% of it, but there are little parts I miss, and I miss that part, but I will say, if he said something like you're saying, it sounds to me like this is what he could have meant. And so you're saying that you recall him saying something like, well, if the Democrats do this, the Republicans can do it in the future. I think, I'm guessing he might have been complaining about the fact that they're filibustering this at all. I
do agree. Like, the Democrats shouldn't be filibustering it at all. He's a completely qualified judge.
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense.
And so I think what he's upset about is the threat in theory would be, well, like if you are going to filibuster this guy, we're just going to filibuster some person you nominate who normally wouldn't be filibustered. But to me, I think, now maybe he doesn't want to come out right now and support the nuclear option, but I'm guessing it looks like that's where this is going right now. And, you know, I'm sorry, continue?
That is the worst case scenario.
You're saying it's worst case. Well, now would you be really unhappy if the Republicans did that?
I feel like it shouldn't have to happen in the first place.
Yeah.
It shouldn't have to happen. Like, he's a completely qualified guy. He has a great record. Democrats have voted for him in the past. It doesn't make any sense to vote for it now. It's completely political. It's sort of almost a shadow government sort of pushing this. I don't know what's going on with it, but why don't they want him in? He's qualified. And they don't want gun rights. They don't want abortion rights. It's things like that.
And I think you make a compelling case, Jesse, for the argument that why are they filibustering him? Because at a certain point, if you have a Republican president, they're going to nominate somebody with certain leanings as a justice, and it's like, assuming you're not going to filibuster everyone, who are you hoping for? And it seems like they're doing it to make some political point or something like that. But is that really what the filibuster is for? And I, as I said in the pre-show, I think the filibuster is being used now, and it's being used by both sides in much more than it was intended to be used. And at a certain point, so to me, if that's going to be the case, I don't mind if they get rid of it, because it just seems like it's not being used for what it was intentionally, what it was originally put in for.
If you look at filibusters just a few years ago with Ted Cruz and even Bernie, Ted Cruz filibusters the health care bill, and that was legitimate because there were legitimate problems with that bill. And Even Bernie's was a legitimate filibuster. He had legitimate problems with the bill. And, but this is not a legitimate filibuster. It's just not.
Okay, well, Jesse, I think later this week we'll probably, my timing is right, I think it's going to be later this week. We'll see what actually happens with it. But I think
Chuck Schumer needs out of there.
I'm sorry?
We need to get Chuck Schumer out of there as soon as possible. Chuck Schumer is a problem.
I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon. So him and Nancy Pelosi seem to be pretty settled in there. So, but thank you. I appreciate you calling in and giving your opinion on the filibuster on Gorsuch, and we will watch along with you.
Thanks, man. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks so much, Jesse. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
All right, later.
That was Jesse. Jesse said he was calling from, I'm losing my mind. Jake, where did Jesse say he was calling from? I forget. It was like it was Pennsylvania. That's right. So thank you. If you want to call in, please call in. We're going to take some more calls here. 202-470-0049. As usual, I am impressed with both the range of topics people call in about and also their thoughtfulness about them. Whatever your opinion, we would like to hear it. Maybe you think the Republicans shouldn't go nuclear with the Gorsuch thing. Would like to hear your opinion on that. Let us know. Or you can always write me too. Direct message me on Twitter @Lookner, @LOOKNER, or email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. And while we're talking about Twitter, follow Right Side Broadcasting @RSB Network, and Jacob Seals, who's doing a great job producing today, @JacobRSBN Music. Jacob, what happened to that breaking news theme that I was so excited about and that we were working on, that you were working on? Any update on that? I didn't hear you, Jake. He's working on it. That is the update. He's working on it. So you're working on it, and we're waiting on it, Jake. So we want to hear it. If you want Jake to finish his breaking news theme, write to him at Twitter at JacobRSBN Music and tell him to finish the theme so we can hear it. But we look forward to it. Looking over your comments here, Julie Shake wrote in, Donald Trump is the genuine article, folks. Yay, Trump. Regarding the check that President Trump donated his first quarter salary to the National Park Service, Jeff wrote in, the liberals will say it's fake, a lie, or some other moronic scheme Trump has planned. I've forgotten to check my email in a second. So let me check and make sure I'm not missing any of your messages in there. And again, the number, if you want to call in, 202-470-0049. Would love to hear more of your calls. I should also get back. I haven't even had time to talk about some of the stuff that was discussed in the briefing. Let me go back to there. Let me just open this up. Where is it? Where is my Google Drive? Where'd you go? No, there it is. Get my notes up here. So there was, Sean Spicer did say that the U.S. condemns the reprehensible attack on St. Petersburg metro system. So he said that. And he also said the United States is prepared to offer assistance to Russia that it may require in investigating this crime. So that was said by Sean Spicer. Still don't know, will President Trump tweet about the Russia thing? Will he release an official statement? So we'll see. Keep an eye on that. Now, Sean Spicer did say, I wrote down what he said, he was asked about the Susan Rice thing, and he said he refused to really get into it in detail, but he did say, he said, there is a troubling direction some of this is going in. So that's one thing he said, but he didn't want to get into specifics. But he also said, it's very interesting that there's this lack of interest from the press about, the Susan Rice aspect of the Nunes story versus other developments in the story, which they seem to care about so much more. We were saying the same thing in the pre-show here. So I thought that was a reasonable thing for Sean Spicer to say. He was asked, so he donated his salary to National Park Service, and some people asked, or at least one person asked, about why he wouldn't do more to reimburse the government for the security costs, like at Mar-a-Lago and Trump Tower and stuff. And Sean Spicer said he walked away from a lot to be president. Now, that's a whole thing that they like asking about. the press likes asked about why he won't reimburse them more. Now, I do think, though, something to keep in mind with that whole question of like, it's costing so much for President Trump to go to Mar-a-Lago or to go to Trump Tower, and I understand that. At the same time, he didn't make the rules that said how much presidents are reimbursed for security costs and stuff. Those rules were already in place. So if you want to blame someone for a president who travels a bunch costing the taxpayers money, you should blame the people that made the rule. Because when they made this rule, to me, it's certainly reasonable to anticipate that we might one day have a president that has a lot of money and likes to spend the weekend somewhere. Then if that's not something that you want to happen, that shouldn't be part of the rules. But the thing to do is to change the rule. I don't think, if President Trump didn't make these rules and he came in, and look, I understand the argument that it costs a lot of money when he goes to Mar-a-Lago or whatever. I think there is an argument to be raised that, for example, he plays golf with people as part of business. He played golf with the Japanese Prime Minister in Mar-a-Lago, and then he played golf this weekend at one of his other golf courses. I think with was it Director of the Office of Management and Budget, and also Rand Paul, and I think the budget director of the OMB. I think. Is it? I want to say like. It's with an M, and I'm just blanking. Hold on, I want to get this. OMB director. Mulvaney? I don't know. Mick Mulvaney, yeah. So, and thank you, Jake, for whispering in my ear. So, Jake reminded me of Rand Paul, but he played golf with Mulvaney and Rand Paul this weekend, and I think there's an argument to be made that if that's where he feels comfortable and he is able to have productive, outings at these places. And the premier of China is going to visit him at Mar-a-Lago too. And if he has better meetings with them there and makes progress on stuff and develops relationships in Mar-a-Lago at his golf courses that are better than he could do just being in the White House, maybe there's benefit that comes to America, financial benefit, that balances off the cost of going there. I'm not saying it definitely does. I think there's an argument to be made for it, though. So it's an interesting argument we might have about, the cost of him traveling to these places. But I'm just bringing up some other considerations that you might want to think about rather than just saying like, oh, it costs so much, so he should just stay. It's his fault, and he's being dumb, and he should stay at the White House. These are just other arguments you might consider. Let's see. Oh, somebody sent me a message, so I want to get to that. Let's see. Sightless Seer, you write, I've had other discussion groups, but we were talking, you wrote in before, and I talked about, discussion groups on the internet you can join that discuss certain topics. And Sightless Seer, you say, I've had other discussion groups, but I already outpaced them. I get bored when people simply agree far too often with me. It incapacitates the ability to contribute constructively. Limiting the ability pose the alternative perspectives and reasonable critique to greater develop my own understanding. I like RSBN. I enjoy your shows, Steve. I'm opportunistic to any potential to consolidate both. If I end up making my own forum, would it be acceptable to share its resources through RSBN for you to use? Hey, send it along. Let us look at it, Sightless Seer. We'd love to look at it if you create your own forum. You do make an interesting point, though, Sightless Seer, about joining an online discussion group. Is they do tend to be, naturally people gravitate together with the same views. So, but then a lot of online discussion groups tend to lack the back and forth that can sometimes be really beneficial to understanding something and developing your own opinion and hearing other arguments. And when they have back and forth, they often devolve into like people yelling at each other and not being civil. So I wonder if there are sites that are devoted to like, we want people from different, I'm guessing there must be this somewhere, but I'm not sure where it is. We want people who have different views to actually debate about stuff, but do it civilly. So let me know if you know of any of those kind of sites. That'd be a good site to have. So Jake just said in my ear that Gab called itself the free speech platforming place, maybe Gab. And Jake, thanks for suggesting that. Last night I actually went on, because people keep talking about Gab to me, I went to go on Gab and I put my email address in and it said like, you're on a waiting list now, we'll email you to get in at some point. So I can't even look at it yet. I don't know how that's working, but I will check it out as soon as I can because I want to see it. Let's see here. So we are covering the Sean Spicer press briefing. This is the post show. We've taken a bunch of calls. We have time for a few more calls if you'd like to call in. 202-470-0049. What do you think about the Supreme Court stuff going on with Neil Gorsuch? What do you think about this Russian terrorist attack? What do you think about President Trump donating his salary to the National Park Service? Do you think that? So that's very interesting that he donated to the National Park Service. Because remember, there was that whole thing with the inauguration where reportedly President Trump had requested that the National Park Service had not tweet over the weekend. I'm missing the details of this whole story, but that was a basic element of this story. And do you think that President Trump picked National Park Service? I mean, I'm sure he thought it was a worthy cause, but also because it was a way to say like, hey, I'm actually, I'm sorry about that, or just so you know, I'm with you, or a way to sort of get back at people who criticized him for having that, telling the National Park Service not to tweet. Do you think that was intentional? So we'll see. It's an interesting choice, though, so I'd like to know what you think about that. And I should remind people, after this show, later on this evening, there's going to be more Right Side Broadcasting coverage tonight. Right Side Broadcasting programming, a full lineup of primetime programming tonight. We have America First with Nick Fuentes. That's at 8 p.m. Eastern. Wayne Dupree Show, 9 p.m. Eastern. And at 10 p.m. Eastern, we have The Right Mindset with Mike Cernovich. So check them all out. I'm going to check out my Twitter right now and see if there are any more comments that people sent in. This is from Henoch Jeb. I posted a picture of the check, the president's check that he gave to his salary check that he gave to National Park Service. And Henoch Geb wrote, there is no coverage from the mainstream media, more on liberals and Dems. So Henoch Geb is not happy with the lack of coverage he sees about President Trump donating his salary. I will say there were a lot of snarky, like a couple weeks ago, the issue of where President Trump was going to go to donate his salary, that off and on. All right, hold on one second, Jake. We're back. Sorry, I had my earpiece out because we thought there was a camera issue, and now my earpiece is out, so I got to put it back in. Excuse me. Sorry. Maybe it's the rain, Jake. It was raining a lot here today, but no tornadoes, thank goodness. All right, hold on one sec, folks. Let me put this on. There's my clip. I can put it on. Let's see. I was looking and catching up on your comments here. Let me go to my email here. All right, so we have a few more minutes here. If you want to call in, 202-470-0049. If you want to write in at Lookner on Twitter, at LOOKNER, or direct message me, steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. We will be covering the Sean Spicer briefings this week. We have those coming up. We have the visit, I'm assuming when the head of China, I'm going to look up, premier or president of China? What is it? I have to figure this out. Oh, great. All right, we'll take a call in a second. president of China. When he comes, I'm guessing there'll be some sort of press conference. There usually is. From Mar-a-Lago, so we're going to bring you that. And any breaking news, we will bring you this week too. We have, is it Jacqueline on the line?
Yes, this is Jacqueline.
Jacqueline, thank you for calling. Where are you calling from?
Florida.
Awesome. What's on your mind today?
Well, Jacob told me not to make it weird.
Okay. Is this, by the way,
Anyway.
is this Jacqueline? I know there's a Jacqueline in the chat room. Is that you?
Yes, it is me. I just wanted to tell you that.
Awesome. Thank you for calling in, because I know you're a longtime viewer and supporter of Brightside Broadcasting, so appreciate it.
Yes, I love you guys.
Thank you.
Anyway, I just wanted to give you a compliment, actually, and just tell you that from the first time, like when you were on air, you have gotten so good, and I'm so proud of you. I think all the chatters are really proud of you.
Thanks so much for saying that. Although that does point out probably how much worse I was and how bad I was when I was first on air. But I don't know. I don't think you were really saying that. No, I really appreciate it, and I appreciate all you guys watching. And also, I got some very constructive comments for people when I was first on the air, so I appreciated all that too. And people are welcome to always send me constructive criticism too.
Yeah, we all love you to death. But I'm gonna let you go and let you finish your show. So.
Thanks for calling in. Very much appreciated, Jacqueline.
All right, bye.
Thanks. Oh, nice call from Jacqueline from the chat room. By the way, if you haven't been to our chat rooms, check them out. There's the chat room on YouTube, and that goes on whenever throughout the day. When we're doing a show, it's next to the show. When we're not doing a show, it's on the office cam. You can find people there. It's moderated. The moderators do a fantastic job. They keep it clean and fun and troll-free, so you can go there and share your views. 24 hours a day, basically, you can go and find the Right Side chat room on YouTube, so that's there. And then on rsbn.tv on the website, there's another chat room always going on. That chat room it's not really a room so much as like an ongoing chat. So there's different events listed and different programs listed on the Right Side Broadcasting page on the web, rsbn.tv. And if you go to one of the recent ones, you can always find where the chat is taking place. And that's also moderated. Moderators there also do a great job. And so if you want to talk about a political issue or just, talk about what's on your mind and find some friendly people to do it with, those are two great places to do it in. There's also a Gab chat. Jake, do you remember off the top of your head where we are on Gab? They won't let me on Gab yet, so I haven't found. All right, so maybe Jude will write in and tell us. She wrote in once and told me. So Jude, if you're watching and you want me to say the Gab address, write in again. And I'm just checking here. Yes, so we have to get off the air soon. So I want to see, we have time for like one more comment. Let me see if there's a comment here. If not, we might just get off the air right away. I think we're about it. I think I've gotten to all the comments. Let me check my email and just make sure. One more. Is this for us? Let me see. Is this? Hold on. Oh, okay. That's something else. That's not about the show. Anyways, so this has been the Sean Spicer Press Briefing. Thanks so much for joining us today for the pre-show, for the briefing, for the post-show. Thank you for all your comments and calls. They were great today, as usual. Thank you to Jake for producing. Thank you to the moderators for moderating. Thanks to who else? I don't know. But we'll be back tomorrow with the Sean Spicer Press Briefing. And please watch all our shows tonight. If you like our coverage, hope you consider donating. Again, we had a couple of great donations today, which were very nice of people. But consider donating to us. You can donate. You guys keep us on the air. We wouldn't be on the air without your donations. You can donate in the chat room by clicking the $ at the bottom of the chat room on YouTube, or you can go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate. But for now, hope you have a great day wherever you are, and we'll see you soon. Have a good one.